Welcome back to the Puckn Pod. On today's episode, we discuss our Super Bowl predictions, followed by our pre-NHL trade deadline discussion. Then we get into what's Buggin Brando. And finally, we discuss our favorite karaoke songs. That's all coming up next right here on the Puckn Pod. Let's Puckn go! Wow, gentlemen, it has been like the craziest week and a half in all the leagues, not just the NHL, but like the NFL, baseball, like basketball. There's been so much stuff going on. We've got a lot to talk about. So I think what's best here, let's get our Super Bowl talk out of the way. We've got the Super Bowl. By the time this podcast is out, the Super Bowl will be done.
That's correct. Yeah.
What's our prediction here for the Super Bowl? We've got the Chiefs versus the Eagles. What are you guys thinking? I mean, the Chiefs are going for 3 in a row here.
I think you'd be within the right frame of mind to say that the Chiefs probably have it yet again. It's not too hard to side with Patrick Mahomes. He's a pretty damn good quarterback. I would go behind them being 3-time winners in a row.
Do either of you guys know people who are big-time fans of either team?
We know one guy who's an Eagles fan.
Absolutely. Yeah. Our buddy Brad. He's
That's right.
A huge Eagles fan. He saw them when the Super Bowl was in Philadelphia. He was at that game.
My wife is a huge Chiefs fan, and actually my son, vicariously through her, is also a huge Chiefs fan. So they're rooting for the Chiefs. I'm kind of neutral. I don't really care who wins or loses. I just hope it's a good game, entertaining game, and I'm sure it will be. The last time the Eagles and Chiefs faced off, the Kelsey brothers were facing off against each other, and of course Travis came out victorious. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens this time around. Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, I would not put it past them to pull off this victory and bring a third Super Bowl. And I know that Taylor Swift is cheering him on. So, the funny thing, I mean, you can argue all along about how, it's a distraction having somebody like Taylor Swift sitting in the stands cheering on Travis Kelce, but it is bringing people to the game that wouldn't normally be there watching the game. So there is a benefit to it.
Do you think that Travis Kelce goes home after he wins the Super Bowl, holds the Dean Lombardi trophy, and just says, "You belong with me"?
I definitely think that's what's happening.
Yeah, that's totally what's happening.
If not that song, it's the 22 song. I believe he said that was his favorite. So,
well, I guess depending on what happens with the game, hopefully the Chiefs don't run into trouble because of Taylor Swift. So,
so we could do that all night long. I have a couple questions for you guys. So, Andy Reid and Nick Sirianni, two very different coaching styles, two very different age groups. Andy Reid is 66 and Sirianni's 43. Neither of these guys played pro football.
Yeah.
And yet they've got very different coaching styles. Andy Reid is very offensive based, and the Eagles have arguably the best defense in the league. Yep. Now, when you think this history is kind of on the line with Kansas City going to be the only team in the history of the Super Bowl to three-peat.
Yeah.
Now, do you think the pressure's more on the Chiefs to kind of bring that home, that record, that history? Or is the onus more on Philadelphia, who's defensive-based, to stop that offense and stop that history being made?
If it's me, I would say probably Andy Reid is going to come out victorious. More so because of his experience with coaching this team and coaching in general. I mean, the guy's been coaching for centuries, it feels like. But he also his team can get behind him, and I think that's the part that people forget about with the Chiefs is that they can pretty much achieve anything as long as they get behind the coach and get behind each other. And I think that's the capability of having a coach like Andy Reid.
Well, it's the power of good leadership, right? If you have an inspiring leader and one that motivates you, of course you're going to succeed to the full of hysteria, hopefully winning a championship. I have to wonder with this particular game, because the Eagles have as good a defense as they do, whether the running game is going to make a difference. Obviously with Saquon Barkley having the year that he had with the Eagles, he could be all the difference in that game for the Eagles to possibly steal it from under the Chiefs' feet.
Did you guys know that Andy Reid is the only coach in NFL history to have 100 wins with 2 different teams?
I did not know that, actually. I was thinking, as soon as you started saying, the only coach in the history, I was immediately thinking Bill Belichick, because of course he coached New England for so long. But of course, you said with 2 teams, so that definitely makes a difference. Him being a Buffalo Bills coach too. Just on that discussion with the Eagles, specifically talking about the Chiefs having the team on his back and having them kind of do his bidding, so to speak. I think about the Eagles too, also going into this game wanting revenge for what's happened in the past between these 2 teams. And, the city of Philadelphia gets behind their team. It's, I mean, not to say that the Kansas City fans don't get behind their team, but it's going to be a different game, than either team is used to, I think.
I wonder if at the end of it we'll have Donald Trump saying, "Congratulations to the great state of Kansas."
And to the losing team, you're fired.
Yeah, you're fired.
Okay, I just had one more thing to say, but as I do, I was wondering if I have an actual number prediction for the result of the game. But before I do, I don't know a lot about either of these teams. I don't know a lot about NFL football, to be honest with you. If any football gets watched in this house, usually it's CFL anyway.
Right.
But I did do a bit of research, and I was reading some articles, and I actually found more of the consensus is actually betting on the Eagles' defense to be able to shut Kansas City down.
I can see that.
So I'm curious to see if any of our listeners have any predictions. I guess it'll be too late, but for that matter. But just to see the different perspectives on that, right? So I'm going to go with my number: Philadelphia 31, Kansas City 27.
That's a fair guess. I would agree, just for the fact that it'll be a tight game. I think it'll be so tight. In fact, I mean, there's a chance this game could go to overtime, which would be insane for a Super Bowl, Super Bowl win to be in overtime. But especially if it's a three-peat, say Kansas City winning. But I think I want Kansas City to win. However, I feel like the Eagles have a real chance here. I'm going to say the Eagles eke out a win here, and it's going to be something like, 16-15, kind of thing. Like that's what I'm seeing.
Taking the under.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to still side with the Chiefs. My original thought. Also close game. I won't be surprised if it stays in the low 20s, maybe 21-18.
I just feel like defense is going to win the day, for both sides, and that's why it'll be such sort of a low scoring affair. Which, I mean, we've seen 7-3 wins in the Super Bowl before, so it's not impossible. But I just really feel like they're going to play really hard-nosed defense on both sides, and it's going to be really hard for offenses to get the ball into the end zone more than anything. We'll probably see field goals more than anything, I think, kind of win the day. But it's going to be an exciting game, and I'm looking forward to it, just to sort of see how it all ends up, especially with the opportunity of a three-peat.
Do you guys both plan to watch it?
Yeah, I'll probably take a gander at it after work on Sunday.
Yeah, we'll definitely be watching it. I mean, even if I didn't want to watch it, it would still be on in the house because my wife and son are both big Chiefs fans, so they'll be rooting for him. And I'm wishing good luck to our buddy Brad there, who's a big Eagles fan. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the end.
Yeah.
Well, boys, I think that's plenty of football talk for our show for now. We have a smattering of stuff to talk about when it comes to the rest of the sports world, and especially with hockey. I mean, I can speak for myself being a Canucks fan. We've had a lot of stuff go down over the last little while.
Has there been stuff happening in Vancouver?
Yes, yeah, just a few things. One big thing is JT Miller is no longer a member of the Vancouver Canucks. He has been traded to the New York Rangers in exchange for Philip Hedl and Victor Mancini coming back to Vancouver, as well as a first-round draft pick, which was 13, I believe it was top 13 protected. They then flipped that first-round pick, as well as Danton Heinen and Vinny Desharnais to Pittsburgh in exchange for Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor, who I've actually been really impressed with over the past couple of games that they've played. Specifically Drew O'Connor, I wasn't sure what to expect with him, but he's fast and he's big and he works well with the puck. He makes good first passes and scored his first goal the other night. So I'm really happy with what they've gotten back.
He was well loved in Pittsburgh because he's a bit of a workhorse, and certainly your team needs that no matter what, whether it's Canucks, Leafs, any of the Canadian teams that we follow. So I'm not surprised that Drew O'Connor is fitting in good, and considering the star power that Vancouver has, you need that kind of extra hard work.
I'll admit this too, like the return with Philip Hedl coming back. There was a lot of speculation that Philip Hedl is known for being a third line center, right? Like he's not a top six player kind of thing. But the argument, of course, has always been that he's just never gotten the opportunity in New York, right? So coming to Vancouver, he's been playing second line center role, and he's been doing well at it. He's fast and he's good, and he's really good hands. He makes good plays. There are certain moments where I feel like he kind of makes a few too many moves. Like he might dangle a little too long. But a lot of that can be fixed with people, communicating with him and stuff like that too, right? He is new to the team, so you kind of expect mistakes to happen, but he did score in his first game with Vancouver, and he's to me, I think he's doing well with the team. A lot better than I was anticipating.
I was at that game. I got to see his first goal.
I forgot about that.
It was. I actually got to see Drew O'Connor's first game too, and he really fit in. This is what I'll say about it. And I don't know the Canucks roster that well, but what I will say from the game that I went and saw, and this was the first game I've seen in 12 years, NHL game anyway.
Right. Yeah.
And which is I got a whole another experience to talk about there, but. What I took out of it was how well O'Connor fit on the fourth line with his line mates, Sherwood specifically. Yeah. Sherwood set a record that game for most hits in an NHL season with 30 games left.
It's incredible.
That guy must be sore after every game. My God. Not to mention the people he hits.
And what's funny is he hasn't played every game. He's missed I want to say something like 6-7 games.
Yeah.
So for him to come back and still be the leader and still beat that record for Canucks for Canucks players. It's a Canucks hit record specifically, I think.
Yeah.
The Lee record is not far behind though, and with 30 games left, I mean he's got plenty of time to do that.
But you're totally right, Paul, about O'Connor being a workhorse because you could see it throughout the game. There was one point in the second period I was so disappointed because it was right below where I was sitting in the corner, and he went to go hit. I think it was Sider, who's a big boy himself.
Yeah.
But O'Connor went to finish his check, and he had him lined up, and unfortunately, Sider just kind of sidestepped a little bit, and they both kind of just hit the boards at the same time, and he bounced off and fell on his ass. But it was shaping up to be real nice, and it didn't end. It was disappointing in the end. But and it was the same with Hedl fitting in on the second line that game. He just looked like that was the spot for him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that they're playing on new teams and they're trying to fit into a specific role that they know that they were picked up for, right? So it's exciting for them to get the opportunities that they want to get, and they're happy that they're on a team that actually wants them. You know what I mean? So I can see why that would drive a player, and it's also driven the team. Like you can see that there's a difference. There's a different kind of mentality on the team now with Miller gone. Not to say Miller was bad for the team by any means. I just think that you needed a different energy in the room, and making that trade happen, and then being able to go and get somebody like Marcus Pettersson, who you needed that help on the back end with. He's basically their clear number 3 defenseman now. So playing with Hronik, which is really exciting. So. The benefit of having somebody like Marcus Pettersson is that you're not noticing him on the back end, which is a good thing, when it comes to defense.
That's usually a good thing for defensemen. I was just going to say, Paul, what did Vancouver then do with said Marcus Pettersson.
Paul's looking at you like, what are you talking about? I can tell you what they did. They re-signed him to an extension, 6 years, $5.5 million, which is really exciting. Like, the big benefit of that is it just basically means trading away that draft pick was not for naught.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, he's definitely the gem of probably that trade, right? Like, it's something that Vancouver obviously needed with the way the year's been going, that they really needed that help on D. And he's a quiet player. Like, in regards to his impact on the ice, it's noticeable, but it's not like, it doesn't stand out like a top
not
four,
in a bad way.
Top 4 star defenseman. It's just he does his job, he does it well, and certainly is going to help solidify that back end.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, it makes the extension makes the signing not for not. Like the big worry that we all had as Canuck fans was, what's going to happen if they can't get him signed and we get to the end of the year and he decides to go somewhere else? Now you've basically traded away, 2 players and a first round pick, that you had for nothing, right? So now we've got to get Drew O'Connor extended, and then Brock Besser extended, and then we might be sitting pretty here.
I'm smirking right now because I cannot wait to hear the clip of Shorty going, Pettersson from Pettersson and Pettersson.
Yeah. And what's funny about that is the big
Triple P.
the big discussion they've had has actually been, he's worried about saying these things. He's like, oh, this is the job I've got to do now. But yeah, we've got Marcus Pettersson, we've got Elias Pettersson, the forward, and Elias Pettersson, the defenseman, who also has looked really, really well in his games that he's been playing. So
I didn't like him against Detroit.
yeah, he had a really great game the other day, against Colorado, and really made himself physically known, and he scored his first NHL point. I don't know if it was against Detroit. It was against the game before.
No,
Detroit.
it was against Detroit.
Yeah.
And it was probably a good thing because it was right after 2 very bad turnovers.
Yeah. And these are the kind of things you're going to get with young players. They're going to make those type of mistakes. But what's nice to see is the fact that he's not afraid to throw the hits that when he needs to. He's playing his position really well right now. Over the last couple of games here. So it's exciting to see what kind of future we've got. And then we've got people like Tom Willander coming eventually, and there's stuff to look forward to for sure.
I had a quick little comparison. You'll probably maybe recognize why. A quick little comparison while I was watching him play, being the size that he is. And I just saw 3 or 4 opportunities where he was able to kind of ride the blue line and just sit the puck through.
Yeah.
And like you said, kind of being a bigger guy, being able to box out those players. He reminded me a lot of Cody Franzen from back in the day. Just he always seemed to be able to find a way to get the puck through no matter what, right?
It's important. It's just too bad you never got to see Hughes play. He's been out. He's been sitting out the last couple of games, but there's a lot of talk right now. Just continuing that with Hughes, where they think maybe he won't play the Four Nations. Whatever this injury is, and I mean he's already got the hand injury, but there's apparently a lower body injury that he's kind of fighting off right now. If that keeps him out of the Four Nations tournament, then frankly, I don't care. I think that, for me, what happens with Vancouver is more important than whatever happens in the Four Nations Cup. I think a lot of fans would say the same. Yeah.
Marner's in the same boat.
Yeah, you're seeing already there's about 6 or 7 teams where these star players are supposed to go play in the Four Nations and they're all going in hurt, right? So we may not see Sidney Crosby play.
Oh yeah, he left practice today.
That's
even.
Right. Yeah.
They said that he returned to practice today after I think it was 2 nights ago he hurt himself. And then he left practice after just doing a skate around.
Yeah.
So that's not good news for anyone.
It's there's all sorts of kind of scary injuries, and this is I was listening to an interview with Ray Ferraro on Donnie and Dolly today, where they were talking about that specifically with Hughes, and then he mentioned there's about 6 or 7 teams that have the same problem, and this is the issue with having a tournament that takes place right in the middle of the season. You're getting guys who are already playing competitive hockey going into a tournament where it's even more competitive, and you can't expect guys to come out of this tournament and be okay, physically. So it's a scary thing when you kind of place this tournament in the middle of the season.
Yeah, it's not a surprise to see that there's the possibility of major changes obviously happening with the Four Nations Cup. Like you got Miro Heiskanen is probably Finland's best defenseman.
Yeah.
Not going to play the tournament now. It's still a week away, but anything can happen in that time. I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple more changes made to the rosters. It might have been a good idea to maybe withhold some players from that, just because it is international play now. It's NHL international play. I put quotations on that. So
it's taken place in Montreal and Boston, right?
Yeah,
those are the two locations.
And whether they go with the whole all-star route, where it's it's not as physical as a regular season game, we'll see how the tournament goes. I expect that it would, because again, you're trying to represent your country. So
and you're trying to win a medal for your country, and go through that. So there's going to be a physical aspect, and then maybe in some cases, some guys more physical than others.
Yeah, so I expect there to be physicality. I'm hoping that they don't go the soft route with it, and bring it, because it's meant to be a showcase, right? It's meant to get more people interested in hockey. Not that we don't have a lot of fans in hockey as it is, but if we're comparing it to other major sports in the States and stuff like that, baseball and basketball and football are probably all ahead of hockey down in the States.
So the conspiracy theorist in me is always kind of maybe it's pessimistic of me, but I always look at it like this is just a cash grab for the NHL. Really, let's look at it that way. But I mean, I'm sure there are some people who are excited about it and really do want to see some competitive hockey where countries are going up against each other. I just find it's tough, because you can't really say it's best on best when you're leaving other countries out of it.
Yeah.
Like you're leaving, even though, Russia's out of contention for everybody, but you're leaving countries like Russia, where some of the best players in the NHL are Russian.
Well, it's no World Cup of hockey, right? That was one of the things that was great about World Cup of hockey, is that it had all the major nations, and then it was kind of cool seeing the European team.
I agree.
As well as the young North American team.
Yeah,
that was an exciting time to watch, and it's understandable they do it every 8 years because they want the prestige of it built up. But if they do the whole Four Nations face-off, hopefully it does change in the future, where it becomes like a 6 or 7 or 8 nations face-off, so that you're not excluding other countries at that point.
Yeah. I'll be looking for a couple of things along the lines when you guys talk about the physical play of the games, where if it ends up being a more physical tournament, I'm going to be looking for that to kind of carry on as the season resumes, right? Especially as teams get into tighter playoff races, because it's starting to tighten up in a couple of divisions.
Yeah, I think probably what the break will do for some players, or for some teams, I should say, is that the players who aren't scheduled to play in this tournament, it's going to give them that chance to kind of heal up and prepare for the what do you call it, the downstretch or downswing or upswing?
Home stretch.
Yeah, it's like the end of the season where you're going to be pushing for the playoffs and trying to get to that specific moment to whether you make the playoffs or not, right? And I think that can also be dangerous for a lot of teams too, going into the end of the season, where you might give it your all trying to make the playoffs and then end up hurting yourself, and now you're hurting your team. So, yeah, it's definitely tough. It's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens with this tournament. It's going to be interesting to see, like, who actually does play, who actually is hurt, who's not hurt. It's going to be really interesting to see in the end the final outcome of the tournament.
We've had a lot of other pretty important things go down in the last little bit here.
That's
I think
right.
If you want to talk about a couple of them, Paul, save the big one for last, maybe.
Yeah, my other favorite team other than the Leafs added a couple of Fs to the Flames and traded for Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost from the Flyers for Andrei Kuzmenko, Jacob Pelche, a second rounder in 2025, and a seventh rounder in 2028.
I still haven't seen what Kuzmenko looks like in a Flyers jersey yet. I haven't looked, but I haven't seen. I know it was like 3 days after the trade, and he still hadn't played a game yet for them. I assume it's a visa issue or something like that. That's probably holding it up, but it just baffles me that Kuzmenko would waive his no-trade clause to go to play for Tortorella, who's more of a hard ass than any other coach out there.
More than Tocchet.
Yeah. It's baffling to me that he would agree to do that. Maybe his mindset is I just, want to go where I'm wanted kind of thing, and that's great, but
I would not be surprised that he accepted the trade because he wants to play with Matvei Michkov.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the type of player that Matvei is, and his puck handling and his passing ability, he probably feels like he can get set up by his own countrymen, and maybe be able to improve his play to a point that he gets a decent contract again, just like the last one that he signed.
And who is going the other way again from Philadelphia? Is Frost and who?
Joel Farabee, which I wouldn't have thought he would have been a tradable player for Philadelphia. He seemed like he was a good fit in the long run, and then just kind of dropped down the lineup as I guess the year went on. So
what kind of players are they getting, Calgary?
Morgan Frost is, I would say, a playmaking center. Apparently, he's
very good defensively.
Yeah. Which is something you want for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's apparently fitting really well there right now. From when I was watching the Leafs and Flames game, they were talking about his immediate fit on the team, and certainly that already exceeding what they expected of him.
What would you say, top 9? Where is he playing?
Yeah, he was
top 9, third line center.
He was behind Backlund and Kadri. And then Farabee was playing right wing, I believe it was, with Kadri and Huberdeau during that game, and got his first goal as a Flame since the trade. First one was called off, but was able to still get a goal.
The first one should have counted, but whatever.
Yeah,
there was no goalie interference on
that.
The Leafs ended up winning that game anyway, right?
Yeah, 6-3.
Yeah, they kind of took the game over after that. Yeah, another workhorse. Joel Farabee, just a player everybody wants, right? So we'll see if it works out well for both teams. I mean, like you say, Kuzmenko going to play with a countryman. Maybe they're both around. No, Michkov I think is a couple of years younger.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But maybe it's about opportunity, and I'm sure they would have had those discussions pre-trade, especially if he controlled where he was going, right? So
for sure, yeah. I saw. I don't know if it was the game against Toronto or not, but I saw on Twitter. I think it was either Twitter or maybe it was even on like a replay, like highlight package on Sportsnet or something, where it was like Kadri and was it Huberdeau were fighting on the bench. They were yelling at each other on the bench. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I would have. Yeah, they probably would have shown that on the broadcast. I don't remember.
I can't remember where I saw it, but there was a specific clip where, and I think it was actually before the Toronto game, so it was against another team, but some play had happened where maybe they got scored on or something, and there's a clip where you can see Kadri and I think it was Huberdeau like yelling at each other, like blaming each other for some error or whatever, and then kind of they're making a discussion about it. It's funny because the media always makes a big deal out of any time there's an argument between two players. I mean, look what happened in Vancouver with Miller and Pettersson, right? But it's just funny when you see that, because it's like they look for every opportunity to try to break a team down, especially a Canadian team, where it just feels like you're already under scrutiny, the fact that you play in Canada, but you're even more so under scrutiny if you're not playing well or if things aren't going well for your team, right?
Well, I don't think it's uncommon to kind of lip off, other coworkers or players on your team. Like you hear about that in construction all the time, and they don't hate each other in the end. It's just boys being boys, really.
That's part of the game.
And even when we saw the Leafs last year in the playoffs, where Nylander was beaking up Marner for wanting like a little B.
What did you say? Stop crying, bro, or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. There was an expletive, I think, in there.
Yeah, that's right.
But, I guess we'll see, but it's going to be. Excuse me. There's so much going on right now that I don't even know where your focus can be. Like from a fan's perspective, everybody wants to improve, and there's a lot of rumored players, a lot of expiring contracts. The cap's going up. There's so many factors, but my question to you guys leading into this trade deadline, knowing that. Do you think we're going to be more focused on draft picks, or do you think it's going to be more focused on existing contracts, trying to take on players with term rather than maybe just like a rental situation? And then, will those draft picks come into play as much?
I think the teams that are selling will focus a lot on draft picks because they're selling. The point is they're trying to create cap space, and so they're going to get rid of their best players to go to contending teams, and they're going to want to have a boatload of draft picks to play with during the draft, right? Teams that are contending or teams that are trying to do something this year, you're going to see a lot of hockey deals, I think, where they're either trading, a draft pick for a player or a player for a player to try to make their team a little bit better.
Well, you probably have your retool teams too. So we're talking about rebuilding teams wanting draft capital. when you're looking at your retooling teams, and I would say even Vancouver with their recent trades did some retooling instead of rebuilding, even though they're outside of a playoff spot. Not by much, but you never know what could have happened.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, just to cut you off for a second. I agree with you on that. I think the retool move was to get something back for JT Miller that doesn't hamper the team.
Yeah,
and I think that's exactly what they did with that. And then of course using that draft pick to get Pedersen and O'Connor back. So for me at this point, if they make any more moves, it's more to help the team than it is to retool.
Yeah, and so I'd be looking at again retooling teams. Utah's been on the cusp of trying to make the playoffs this year, and even were kind of good that way last year. They would possibly be good to move out some of their young talent, like the players that haven't made the team yet, to still find young players to join the team, but ones that have a bit of experience at this point. I think they're definitely on the up and up. They're 22 and 9 for the season. I wouldn't mind seeing even a deal made with the Leafs, actually. A guy like Clay Keller, I think, would be an absolute perfect fit on the Leafs. Now, he's one of their important players on Utah, but looking at a guy like Dylan Guenther and some of the guys they already have there, they already have star players in the making. Why not make a deal where, maybe an Easton Cowan, Nick Robertson, and a Max Domi, who was originally drafted by the Coyotes and now obviously Utah, making a deal like that to bring in a guy like Clay Keller to come in, play maybe sometimes third line center when they need it, play top unit power play when they're there. I think he would be a fantastic fit. Gives the retool for the Utah, gives the young player with skill and term for the Leafs.
I think they're going to go in a different direction myself. I think a guy like Keller's too small. And they've already got a lot of small forwards, and I think it's been proven pretty adamantly in the playoffs. Size still works. Size still wins. And instead of Keller maybe from Utah, if they're going to make a deal, I could see somebody like Bukestad maybe. Now, there's been rumors about that. The problem is he's not necessarily, other than size, a Berube player. He's still kind of flashy. He's still looking to score quite a bit, and he doesn't really finish his check, but he's good in front of the net. So you've got kind of the, yin and yang of the situation, but I still think they would probably favor more towards
that
a guy with size.
Yeah.
Although you're right, secondary scoring is what they're lacking right now, right?
Yep.
So I could see either or, but I think salary may be tough with a guy like Keller.
Yeah, I agree. I think ultimately it comes down to making sure you're moving the right players, the right pieces to get the right piece back. If you can get them to retain some salary, then hey, maybe it doesn't hurt so bad. But at the same time, you could go for somebody like Keller and then get a physical winger to kind of play alongside too. It depends on the kind of route you go, right? More than anything.
Well, and like I said, there's lots of rumors out there that we're looking at. Like even Dylan Cousins is a guy that's available in Buffalo right now.
Yeah, he's everywhere.
Yeah, everybody's in on him. Elliot Friedman's just recently kind of talked about him too, right? Again, player I'd love in the Leafs. I've talked about before. I'd love to see a guy like Sam Bennett, like get that bit of a grinder, the guy that's got skill. Definitely the size like you're talking about. I'd be okay with Keller just because of the secondary scoring, but getting the size end of things, like Cousins' value is probably not going to be any lower than it is right now because he's only had, I think it's like 26 points in the 50-something games that he's played. And it is in part to do with the line mates that he has. He isn't playing with like major skill guys like a William Nylander or Matthew Nyes. You have to wonder putting him in that situation because the type of player he is, the type of skill that he has, playing with a guy like a William Nylander, whether that's going to bring his game right up and he'll be a point per game player and have the size that they're looking for and some of the mean streak too that they could use in that team. What
about goaltending depth? Is that something you think the Leafs need to go after?
I don't think so. I'm not overly worried about the goaltending. Depth is always good, I suppose, and I don't think I don't know. Matt Murray, I think, could be their depth guy, really, for the amount of hopefully the amount of goaltending they're going to need. And I think it's been evident the last little while that some of their prospect type goalies, as in Hildeby, may not be mentally ready for the NHL. I think they're okay at goaltending. The Cousins thing for me, I'm not sure it happens. I'd like to see it for a couple of reasons. One is that then the Leafs center depth probably goes to the best in the league. That means Tavares is now your third line center.
Yep.
Right? And he's having a really good season, despite being injured for some of it already. So, yeah, I like the way it would look with Cousins fitting in probably on the second line, like you said, with Willie. And what did they call him? They've been calling him today Robbie the Rocket on the JD Bunkus podcast, talking about Bobby McMahon and how, like, next to maybe Austin Matthews and Nick Robertson, Bobby McMahon probably has the best shot. Nylander as well, but probably has the best shot on the team. Like, he just absolutely rips the thing. And he's been overproducing for basically the contract that he's on. So, that line, man, would that be a fun line to watch. But I just, if the Leafs are going to do that, they better be right about Cousins, because yes, he's underperforming, but he's on a 5-year, $7.1 million contract. The cap's going up, but you can't use that excuse for every player on your team.
This is right.
So the hard decisions are going to have to be made. I can't see it happening for that reason alone, but it would be good.
Yeah, you just mentioned with the cap going up. It's a significant jump this next year. I believe it was almost, is it 7 or 8 million that it's going up?
I think 7 something.
So
7.
There's your coverage for Cousins' contract right there. Like, I know that we're having to look at re-signing Marner and Nyes and Tavares. I could see Tavares at least taking a pretty decent discount to stay with this home team, because that's what he says he wants to do. He wants to play with the Leafs for the remainder of his career. If Marner is only, say, making like $2 million more than what he's making right now, I believe the money's there to go out and get a deal with Cousins, if you're including salary going back the other way, like a Max Domi or something. Albeit Max Domi might not have that in his no trade for Buffalo, but I do believe he was only for 10 teams, so they still probably could trade him to a team that is on the on his list of teams that he would go to. I really think a guy like Cousins, Bennett, any of those guys are a good fit. I do believe Toronto still needs to figure out their top 2D situation. Morgan Riley is, I don't know, he's not having a good year.
I actually liked his last game against Calgary, and Berube has been saying that they've been sort of pushing him to go vintage Riley, so to speak, and like jump into the rush more, and be that wristing the puck through and trying to shoot more from the point. They put him back on the number one power play, which they'd taken him off of. So I've liked him a little bit the last couple of games, specifically Calgary. They're playing against Seattle tonight, so we'll see how that goes. But speaking of Marner, as you were talking about, and the contract that he may or may not fetch, pretty comparable player as far as points and salary goes was actually just moved by the Colorado Avalanche. Why don't you reveal the unreal details of that trade?
So it was a 3-team deal. It was Colorado Avalanche trading Mikko Rantanen.
Who?
Mikko Rantanen.
I cannot.
I know. I was shocked. I was shocked. I was actually driving when this trade went down, and I was trying to chat with you guys and kind of be like, what's going on with this trade? And nobody knew what was going on. I had to pull over, of course. I wasn't going to drive and text at the same time, but yeah, definitely crazy trade.
Well, considering he's one of the top 3 wingers probably in the league.
He's a free agent at the end of the year. If he doesn't re-sign with Carolina,
it's a lot to give up.
There's going to be a lot of teams that are going to pay that guy more than he's worth.
Yeah, so like I said, it was a 3-team deal. Carolina got Mikko Rantanen. The Chicago Blackhawks actually retained 50% of his salary and sent Taylor Hall as well to the Hurricanes. And then prospect Nils Juntorp. I don't even know how to pronounce his name.
How do you spell it?
Juntorp. Juntorp. And then Colorado received Martin Necas, obviously playing wing right now with Nathan McKinnon, but really good second line center for them in the future.
Well. He's playing really well.
And then it was cool, I thought, for them to bring in Jack Drury, considering Chris Drury played for the team years and years ago. So they have a Drury back on the Avalanche. I really liked that. Mm-hmm. And then there was draft picks included, 2nd rounder, 4th rounder going to Colorado because of obviously the value of Rantanen, and then Chicago for some reason only taking back their 3rd round pick for retaining half of Rantanen's contract.
That's crazy. That's all it costs to get somebody to retain half a salary. That's pretty incredible.
And there are lots of teams that have cap space.
Yeah.
Lots of teams that don't.
Yeah.
So this trade deadline is going to be real fun, I think, actually.
I wonder...
They're going to have to be creative, right?
Part of me wonders if Chicago getting involved like this and kind of doing that you scratch my back, I'll scratch your deal, if they're gonna do a trade in the at the deadline or maybe in the offseason where Colorado's got to fork out something for them, give them a good deal, or Carolina has to, one of the two, right? But definitely would be interesting to see if something goes down there in the offseason or at the deadline.
Yeah, you never know with that kind of a move made, and the fact that, again, it seems like low draft capital to retain, over $9 million worth of, well, the contract itself was $9 million, but retaining half of a $9 million contract, almost, so that's basically almost $5 million that you're retaining. So you had to wonder if maybe one of their prospects or higher draft capitals going, maybe say at the draft, depending on where the teams finished in the season.
Now think about it this way too. That is also prorated.
Yes.
So
by this point, it's
by
like
this point of the season, they're probably only retaining 2.8 or 2.4 or something like that. Still, and they get compensated for it, but that could also be one of the reasons that it only cost a fourth round pick.
Yeah.
With a deal like this, it has certainly put the league on notice that there's the contenders are looking to make deals. Like basically right after the Miller trade and the Rantanen trade, Dallas went out and got the San Jose Sharks top line center and Mikael Granlund and Cody Ceci for a first rounder and a third rounder, which
it's not much.
I consider the first round actually quite high value.
Compare when you consider the age of the players and all that, but I think in the end, Dallas was seeing all the moves that other teams were making, and they're like, we need to do something here. And I know that they were in on JT Miller as well, so they definitely needed to make something happen.
Well, the trade deadline is a month away at this point, right? So it's been, I find, more common, at least the last probably about 5 or 6 years, to see some of these major moves happening about a month ahead of time. Yeah. It will be an interesting deadline. I know that we watch the deadline every year. I think it's a lot of fun to do that. Certainly be game breakers for our friend group that we have. But I'm really enjoying the month of February these last few years because you're seeing all these trades, and I really obviously want to see our teams improve, the Canucks, the Flames, and the Leafs. But I'm really interested to see some of the dynamic and power changes that could happen with some of the major trades that could happen here.
I just had a thought about a possible theory with some of these trades. Now, would you guys agree that the last probably 2 trade deadlines for sure, traditionally there isn't necessarily a ton that goes on until probably the last couple of hours, say, right?
Yeah.
But the last couple of years, there has been some trades that you just go, how is that even possible? Like with salary and whatnot. Now, my question is, do you think that teams wait? You know how you're talking about how there are a lot of teams that kind of jump ahead of the game before prices get inflated. But do you think some teams have to wait to accumulate LTIR space to be able to make crazy deals like that?
100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, especially during the dead cap era, like where they didn't know if the cap was ever going to go up or not. They had to be as resourceful as possible. I think of when the Leafs got Mark Giordano. When they traded for Giordano, I remember thinking, how the hell did you guys pull that off? How did you convince them to retain so much salary and like all this stuff, right? Because Giordano wanted to go to Toronto, and that was the big thing, right? So that was, in my opinion, from the outside looking in, that was probably one of the most impressive trades that Dubas ever made. Just kind of looking from the outside in, because I was just like, they didn't have any cap room that year. Like, I was just like, how the hell did you pull that off?
Well, it's probably the same with the Ryan O'Reilly deal 2 years ago as well. Where, again, I think he had something $7 million contract and got a double retention done. It was St. Louis, then there was another team.
That's right.
Still, like it's a lot you had to give up, because I believe they gave up a decent amount of draft capital that year. That's why they have less draft picks this year and next year.
Yeah, that's right.
I kind of like that the NHL has allowed the ability to do a double retention like that. I'm excited. I enjoy watching this stuff.
I mean, having a GM like Patrick Allvin in Vancouver and Jim Rutherford as your hockey ops president, right? It's kind of inevitable that they make these trades before the deadline. That's kind of what they're known for. But I will say, like, I was in Vancouver when the trade went down for JT Miller, and I was excited, but also a little bit somber at the same time because, of course, JT Miller meant a lot to the Canuck fans, right? And there's this thought where you're going, okay, well, we're losing a really good player, and there's this unknown about what you're getting back. Even though you know you're getting Hedl back, you know who is proven. He's a proven player, but he's not proven in terms of a top 6 player. And that's the part that kind of gets scary because you have to replace JT Miller with a top 6 player, right?
Considering the Bo Horvat trade from years ago to the Islanders, right? The part of the reason he got traded is because they didn't have the salary because they signed JT Miller. So
that's right.
Now you've lost both. Well, I shouldn't say lost because you obviously were able to fill that in, but both those centers are gone, right?
And again, that's something that I do give credit to Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford for, in that they don't take a player back, or they don't take pieces back knowing they've lost a trade. What they did was they utilized that first round pick for Bo Horvat and went and got Hronek, right? So in the end, you're filling 2 holes basically, and now Hronek, of that trade, Hronek is the only piece that we have left, which is interesting. But it was worth it because you've got yourself a number 2, right shot defenseman. So it's definitely, there's benefits to it. And that's what they did with this trade too with JT Miller, is that they utilized that first round pick and went and got, Marcus Pettersson, who they've now extended for 6 more years.
How do you feel about Miller having 4 points in 3 games with the Rangers?
I wasn't surprised. It's so funny because the common problem when you trade away a player and then they go and play well on another team is you're like, of course. Of course. But, what do you expect? You don't expect the guy who is a good player to go somewhere else and all of a sudden forget how to play hockey. He's playing on a good line. He's going to score goals and he's going to get points and stuff like that. I'm happy for him. I think it's important that we don't forget the fact that he was a good player even on Vancouver. But, unfortunately, there was something going on in the room that was affecting his play, and it was affecting the play of other people. He was still scoring in Vancouver. He scored his last game in Vancouver, for Vancouver, I mean. And so, yeah, I'm happy for him. I mean, I'm sad that he's not on the team anymore, but I'm happy that he's happy, and I'm happy that the Canucks aren't, worse without him on the team. So,
and to your point, Joe, with him going through some of the turmoil of the season and some of the things that happened in the background that we don't even know about, that's all gone now too. Yeah. So there's an extra weight lifted off his shoulder. That's why you can just go and be JT Miller.
Yeah, there's it's noticeable. There's no drama anymore on the team because you look at the way the team acts now, and it's just on the ice you see guys backing up other guys. When last game against Colorado, I'm seeing I saw one of our players get speared, and guys were defending him. It's to me that's exciting when you're seeing that kind of camaraderie again. It's important to notice, right?
Talking about the Rangers and keeping them in our thoughts here on this trade deadline extravaganza. Not quite yet, but we're gonna get there. But they always release a trade bait board, right? And I've got a few names here. What's interesting that I find on this list is, I think we can probably all sort of agree that the Rangers are probably in that retool category.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yet, out of the top 5 on the trade bait board, they have 2. And that's Chris Kreider and Ryan Lindgren.
Yeah.
So interesting if this retool is going to continue and whether they can get some rostered players for those guys if they do end up trading them, or if now they take a step backwards, because those are 2 pretty important players.
Yeah.
They take a little bit of a step backwards and then they get some draft picks to recoup. So it'll be interesting what happens with those players.
I have a feeling those moves that they make, if they do in fact make any more moves this year, will be done at the deadline, at deadline day. I think it's going to be, they're going to take a few weeks here and kind of see where they're at with adding JT Miller to the team and see what it does to the team, because they've been playing well. I don't believe they've had too many wins, though. If I remember correctly, they're still losing. They might have had 1 win in the last few games, but I know they're losing more than they're winning right now. And I mean, it's a team effort, obviously, but
tough division too.
Yeah.
Considering some of the top trade bait that's out there, maybe I'll ask you guys a few of the players here where where they're rumored to go and where you think they'll go in the end.
Okay.
Top of the list here would be Brock Nelson. Rumors out there right now are saying Dallas, Edmonton, or Toronto. Who do you think would be the best fit?
I'm guessing he goes to a Western team, mainly because I don't think the Islanders want to play against him. What were the Western teams?
It was Dallas and Edmonton.
I'll say Dallas. I think Edmonton won't be able to pull it off. Edmonton's going to be in on everybody, and I just don't see how. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I'm kicking myself because I can't remember the player that they were talking about, but there was a big rumor I heard from Elliot Friedman last week that Edmonton was in on a big-time player, and I can't remember exactly who it was, and that's really frustrating. But I think because of that, and it made sense to me at the time, that's why I think that Dallas will try to go after.
Yeah. Do you agree with me that he'll go to a Western team?
For sure he will. Yeah. I don't think there's a
unless
question
for
about
whatever reason he gets flipped by whatever team picks him up. Like let's say Chicago trades for him and then flips him to Toronto or something like that.
Yeah, I think in this situation, because I still think Dallas does have some cap space, that I think they're really going to try to make a splash.
Yeah.
Even after the trade they just made, and I think Brock Nelson, I mean, he can play center or wing, right? And he's great in both ends of the ice.
If I remember correctly, Dallas has lots of LTIR space because of all the injuries they've got going on.
Yes, they do. Two Kraken players are up on the trade bait here. Oliver Bjorkstrand, first-time All-Star this year. Rumored to possibly go back to Columbus. Utah apparently is interested, as well as the Canucks. Who do you think would be a good fit?
I was going to say, I think he'd probably fit really well in Columbus, but I don't see them trying to trade for him. I mean, maybe. He's got, is he a UFA after this year?
Yes.
He is, yeah.
Then I can see Vancouver going for him.
Yeah, that's what I would say. To be honest.
They're famous for going after UFA.
Yeah, I think that's what'll happen, but I think he'd probably be a better fit in Columbus.
Yeah. I can see Vancouver going after him just for the sake of trying to get some extra help on the wing. I don't necessarily know if it'll be their top priority, but I can see them going after somebody like him for sure.
The other Kraken player was defenseman Jamie Alexiak. He can play left or right side. Rumored to possibly go to Columbus, maybe go back to Dallas, or even the Leafs are interested in him.
A lot of teams are going to want him. To be honest, he's a huge guy. He's like 6'8". Yeah. And he throws the body around. I can see a lot of teams having interest in him.
I have like a gut feeling that Toronto is going to try to trade for both Alexiak and Brandon Tanev. And I knew that as I was saying that, you were probably thinking I was going to say Yanni Gord. But I truly believe that I think they're going to try to trade for Tanev and Alexiak at the same time because they're both Berube players. And 100%. I think the Leafs need a little more of that, and they've got the size. And I think the Tanevs maybe want to play together.
Yeah. Well, and for their hometown team, too, right? They grew up cheering for the Leafs.
And then, obviously, there's Scott Laughton, who's been out there right now. He's got 2 years left at $3 million, pretty affordable contract. And maybe not the best player in Philadelphia, but he is a really good player nonetheless. Rumors right now are obviously the Leafs were in on him, the Sens, and then they're also saying that Tampa Bay, who seems to be in on everybody every year.
Very true. I can see Tampa going after him.
I think Toronto may try to make a deal for Scott Laughton and including Domi going back. Now, that's going to cost them because Domi's not producing at all and hasn't been all season.
Yeah, but he's been doing well in the faceoff circle, hasn't he?
I mean,
am I wrong there? Or
I don't know. He's not. I don't think he's a good center.
Oh, okay.
I really don't. I think he needs to play center because skating and playmaking is one of the only things he does well.
Right.
But I don't want him at center because he's terrible defensively. So I mean, faceoffs aside, it doesn't really matter if you turn the puck over.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's very true.
But
or if you can't retrieve the puck.
Yeah.
I mean, forechecking is key when it comes to being a good defensive center.
Yeah. So I mean, the salaries work. But the Leafs will probably have to throw in at least a second rounder, I would say, to make that deal happen. Maybe even a second and a third. And I think that probably would do it because Domi is still a good player, but he's not playing the role that he's supposed to be playing, and he's not producing the way he's paid to.
Definitely. The number one question you constantly ask every year when it comes to trade deadline time is how desperate are teams to get better?
Yeah. exactly.
Right? And you look at your GM and you ask the question, like, are they desperate enough to get this player? Because how are you as a fan going to react if they give up futures to get that player? And now you're hindered over a couple of years because you went after one specific player.
It's very true. Lastly, probably the two that we'll talk about here is obviously with Nashville in regards to the season that they've had. Lots of rumors that Ryan O'Reilly and Luke Schenn are available to go out. The rumored deals right now are teams that are interested are Boston, Colorado. It would be cool to see O'Reilly go back there, and the Maple Leafs. Any thoughts?
I can see Schenn going to Boston. I can see Boston really wanting Schenn. O'Reilly's a tougher one. I know O'Reilly has said in the past he doesn't want to play for a Canadian team. However, he would be a benefit to pretty much all the Canadian teams. He's such a good centerman, and he's a defensive centerman. Like, he plays well defensively.
Yeah.
But Luke Schenn's like the one defenseman I wish we could have back on Vancouver.
Everybody wants Luke Schenn on their team.
But I think back to like when he kind of turned his career around, coming to Vancouver the first time around. He was the first defensive partner Quinn Hughes had when he joined the team, and they're like best buds. I could see him coming to Vancouver, and he wouldn't play on a line with Quinn Hughes because he's not a top four defenseman, but he would be a huge asset to the team, especially for the playoffs. Now, that being said, you didn't mention Vancouver in there, but like I said, I can see Boston going after him for sure to play alongside, whoever, like Zadorov, whoever. Like, he makes any team better no matter where he plays.
I think Luke Schenn's a player that's going to get traded last minute.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is because a team like Toronto, who may be trying to trade a package, like I say, for Alexiak and Tanev, maybe, if they strike out, players like Luke Schenn are probably going to be the ones where that price inflates a little bit for the receiving team.
Yeah.
And he's like a prime example of that because he does a lot of things right, although he's not going to produce offensively, and he's sometimes can be a liability off the rush. Everything else he does, you need come playoff time. So that push for teams wanting that high-end splash, so to speak, that miss out on those, and there's going to be a lot of them. There's 32 teams in this league. There's going to be a lot of teams that miss out. I think Luke Schenn is one example of a player that price will probably sort of work its way up a bit as the trade deadline comes to an end, right?
I'll agree with you but I will say this one caveat. I think that given the minutes he plays, I think ultimately he won't be that pricey. Like, I think he'll probably be something like, a third or a low second, something like that would get him, I think. Again, just given the minutes that he plays. If he ends up, being a liability in certain scenarios, I think it's because he's either playing a specific role he's not used to playing, like maybe he's playing up in the lineup or something like that. But he is a perfect third line defenseman, or third pairing defenseman, and I would gladly pay a third or a second to get him.
Obviously, we're talking about players that have been on the trade bait board. I, again, would love to see Riley and Schenn come back to the Leafs, but again, dreams. If we're looking at our teams in particular, so looking at the Canucks, the Flames, and the Leafs, is there any players that you guys feel comfortable with going from the team?
That's a heavy question, right? Because there's still players on Vancouver who are rumored to be on the trade market, like Brock Besser, who a lifelong Canuck, right? Like he's the longest tenured Canuck on the team, which is crazy to think about, but he's been on the team longer than anybody else. There's also Elias Pettersson. There's the talk that maybe they might try to move his contract $11.6 million, which will be very, very difficult to move. Well, maybe not as difficult. I mean, there are teams that are interested in him, but do we want to give up a player that is, so promising? And same as Brock Besser, same thing. Besser's having a good year too, as well. So yeah, it's tough. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm comfortable losing those players. It all depends on what the return is more than anything.
From a Leafs perspective, I'll say that there are 3 players that I think I'm ready to move on from, being a Leafs fan. But I think there's only one that could possibly be traded, and I think that's Max Domi, because I think he's probably the only one who has a bit of value. Unfortunately, $3.5 million hinders that a little bit. But I would say that I'm ready to move on from both Pontus Holmberg and Ryan Reeves. Unfortunately, as painful as it is to say that, my guy. But I just, they need a player like him, but I just don't think he's the guy. And Pontus Holmberg, they've got plenty of players in the Marlies that can do more.
Fill that role.
Do more than what he's doing. And it just, he's becoming more of not, I don't want to say a floater, but someone that doesn't do anything out there.
Yeah.
As opposed to even doing a few things right.
Yeah, he's just a body on the ice.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I've come down to with him. So,
considering that Cal Yarncrocs come back and he's about half the cap hit on Max, I would also be fine to see Max Domi go. Like, I loved when Ty played for the team, and it's great to see a Domi back on the team, but his role is diminished, and it's just not really fit for the team anymore. I think they've got really good bait in Nicholas Robertson. As much as I've wanted to see him succeed, I think his time, unfortunately, with the team is just not a good fit, and considering their needs in terms of probably some more top 4D, certainly that third or second line center, I think he's a good trade piece. And I also agree with Pontus Holmberg. I like the player. He is a hard work player, but yeah, you can easily replace somebody like him with the depth that they have in their system.
I realize I didn't answer your question fully though. Like when I talk about players that are on the trade market, but players that I think they should look at replacing. The number one in my mind is probably Carson Soucy and Teddy Bluger. Those are the two players I think they need to improve on. Bluger, had a promising year last year. I just feel like this year he's not really bringing anything to the table offensively. He's kind of hindering the team. He's had breakaways and just like nothing ever happens. Those kind of plays. And then Soucy, same thing. Just too many mistakes. Doesn't really seem confident out there. And the guy's like 6'6", 6'7". He's not doing anything with his physicality out there. So it just feels like more than anything, he's taking up space on the ice. That seems to be what it's happening. So, if they could say utilize Soucy in a trade to get a better defenseman back, maybe include Bluger in that trade. I don't know, but if they can do that, I would be happy with that for sure.
Yeah, Calgary wise, probably you could start looking at maybe getting rid of the young guys, but certainly starting to use some of their young players for getting skilled players, considering how well Calgary's doing this year. They just acquired Hunter Brustevitz. I still don't know how to pronounce his name. They just acquired him obviously last year, but considering how well their D has played, I think he's a good trade chip for Calgary.
I say let him cook. That's just me, though.
Yep. Yeah. Well, the only reason I say this is because of Zane Parekh. They got him during the draft, and he's, in my opinion, he is a better prospect than Hunter. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Hunter Brustevich.
Brustevich, thank you. And then if you're looking at kind of the forward group, they're pretty set. I would hate to see a guy like Martin Pospisil go. I think he's been a really good fit. Conazari is going to be a star for that team, I think.
For a long time.
For quite a long time.
They'll probably sign him to a really major contract when his contract's up.
Yeah, and so if you're looking at, again, still looking at some of the young guys on the Flames, maybe if you're looking to go for the big fish, including like a Samuel Honzik, to go get maybe like a Dylan Cousins or something like that, I think a smart move on their end. And their goaltending, I think, is really good for the foreseeable future with Dustin Wolf playing the way that he is this year.
Do you see them do you foresee them like pushing for the playoffs at this point? Like,
yes.
Are they going for it? Or is this sort of like we know we're kind of getting into the playoffs this year, but we're not really going to make a lot of noise in the playoffs?
Considering what they just gave up for Farabee and Frost,
that's true.
And the immediate fit already with the players, I think that they're going to try and go for it. They've been there right on the line.
Yeah,
the whole year. So I think
them in Vancouver have been duking it out all year. Hey, listen. As much as I like to hear about the Flames, I do not like the Flames, and it bugs me sometimes hearing about the Flames. Brando, what's bugging you?
I got a couple of things that are bugging me right now, and I just want to start off by saying I was actually able to go catch the Vancouver-Detroit game this past weekend. First time I'd been to an NHL game since 2012, so it was a pretty cool experience. The seats were great. The atmosphere was great. They're celebrating Black Excellence Month, and just the the culture in the building. They had a couple of black performers. A guy that's on a show called Shoresy.
Yeah.
Joe Dolo performed. He performed twice, actually. And he was a former NHL draft pick. So that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
And his first intermission performance was about 3 seats down from me on the same balcony level, so that was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
But one thing I will say that bugged me about that game, and I knew it was going to happen, unfortunately, we're going to leave the politics out of it, but I know this is the reason it's happening.
Yeah.
And that's Canadian fans booing during the Star Spangled Banner when there is a visiting American team.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. Let's just... I understand it. I understand you. I see you. But Canadians are better than that. You know, how many of us get so frustrated and so upset? I know I especially do. When you're down, whether it be hockey, baseball, whatever. I saw it myself when I was in Seattle, and I was very heated. You start honoring Canada, or, you know, before the game, you're sharing the colors and you speak about Canada, and then the Canadian national anthem, or they honor a Canadian Armed Forces member, or whatever it may be, and you get the USA chants.
Yeah.
And there's really nothing that drives me more up the wall than that. It's the disrespect is so massive. I don't even know if people realize. We're supposed to be friends. We're supposed to be partners. We have always had each other's backs. And to see the Canadian fans boo like that was the 3rd time that weekend.
Yeah.
At a national sporting event.
I'm trying to remember. I think it was Ottawa.
It was
right?
in Ottawa.
Yeah,
it was in Ottawa, and then the Toronto Raptors game, and then the Vancouver game the very next day.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's happened since.
It has. It's happened in pretty much all the Canadian cities.
One thing I will say on a side note from that is that apparently during the Canadian national anthem in San Jose last night, they actually cheered.
Yeah, and they sang along too, which was really cool.
Yeah, so that really bothers me, and I think a lot of us probably feel the same way, and I just wanted to share my frustration and know that although there are lots of people that still booed but realize that it's probably not right. Well, I get your intention, but
it's interesting because, you know, specifically the woman who was singing the national anthem, the game you were at, she was also in a wheelchair.
And her hands were very,
and she was very.
shaky.
I mean, I would be too. Like you're in front of 20,000 people. Like it's nerve wracking, but at the same time, like I will give them credit that they did cheer for her after she finished singing. Like you could hear them. They were booing during the song, but then when she finished, they cheered for her, and then they, of course, cheered when she started singing "O Canada." So there obviously is a political statement when it comes down to it. But let me ask you guys this question. Do you believe, because there has been some talk about it after all this has gone down, is there a place where, or is there is there a way that you can see national anthems no longer being sung at sporting events, where instead of doing that, they find another way to honor veterans at sporting events? There's been some discussion in TV and on radio and stuff that I've heard where they're talking about, like, maybe we should just get rid of the national anthems altogether and do a different way to honor veterans. Maybe that's in intermissions or something like that. Because that's the whole point of the national anthem, is to honor veterans for the sacrifice and stuff that they've made for us as civilians.
I would hate to see that, to be honest. It's in the history of the games, right? Whether, again, any of the major sports, the national anthem has always been sung, and whether it's Canada or the United States, to kind of sway away from that history, to me, unfortunately, kind of still feeds into that whole woke ideology kind of thing, where you have to make a change for the sake of making a change because it's different now. I don't think tradition or history needs to be forgotten. I believe it's very important. It's where, if we're looking at the major sports, it's where the game has gotten to because of the history of the game. So I would hate to see that happen, because I fully believe I still consider it an integral part, because you're singing for your nation's pride when it comes to watching these games.
I'll agree with you when you talk about that sort of woke ideology, because a lot of the talk and the speaking about removing national anthems has been a discussion for a while, and that has nothing to do with the economics between our two nations. Right, that's happening right now, right? So I would say I'm with you. I really hope that they do not take the national anthem away. I think it's very important, and I think people just need to realize that there are a time and a place, and taking your country's pride and disrespecting it like that, and a close ally and their pride as well. It's just not us. It's just not Canadian. Let's smarten that up.
And it's funny because I consider myself to be more of a progressive thinker. Like obviously my mindset is like, I've always been like, well, whatever works. But, I agree with you. I think that the national anthem does serve a place in sports in general. I mean, it's sung in all sports, in North America specifically, where, we are doing it to honor the people who sacrifice their lives to make sure we have the freedom to go to a sporting event. But at the same time, I'm also of the mindset where I'm like, if somebody's booing the American national anthem, they have a reason to boo. They have the freedom to do so as well. Again, because somebody fought for that freedom as well. So it's a catch-22 in my eyes, but like at the same time, I get where you're coming from. Like, I don't disagree with you at all. We're supposed to honor the people that fought for our freedoms and fought for us to be able to sing the national anthem in the first place. So it's like I said, it's kind of a catch-22. Like, we're also, we're not honoring them by booing, but we're also not booing because of them. We're booing because of something else.
I guess it's having the mindset that change is a good thing, but don't forget your history.
That's right.
Process.
Yep, that's right.
I will say, to finish the note, in case anybody was curious about the result of it, I actually went to use the washroom just before the first intermission, and the woman who sang the national anthem was in the lobby speaking to a couple of friends.
Oh, yeah.
And I did overhear her say that the Canucks players met with her before the game and warned her that may happen.
Yeah.
And she said she kind of already knew that, and she understands that it's not personal and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's not about her.
She actually said that to the person she was speaking to. And I kind of slowed my pace a little bit to hear the end of it because I was curious myself, because I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
This poor girl, right? So my next point is going to be a bit of it's bugging me, but because it's bugging me, I'm going to end with kind of sharing a bit of a positive story. And so I'll just get right into it. But what I'll say about my experience at that Canucks game, because the in-game arena experience has changed so much since I last saw Game 13 years ago. And the light shows, the intensity, the hype up videos on the Jumbotron, the stuff that happens in the intermission or even in between, like on TV commercial breaks and whatnot. There's always something going on, and the arena staff does such a good job with the production of it. And you're going to an event. You're not just going to see a hockey game, which I find really, really cool. And as much as I'm not a Vancouver Canuck fan, I've kind of grown to pay more attention to them and realize and understand the Vancouver Canucks perspective. A lot of it to do with you, Joe, obviously, and doing this podcast with you guys.
Yeah.
But the passion inside Rogers Arena, man. Essentially, I would probably consider it a mean-nothing game. You see Detroit twice a year. There's not really a rivalry there. You're not going to see them anywhere except the Stanley Cup final, if that ever happened.
Yeah.
And it was a Sunday night, and it was loud as hell in there, man. It's so
cool.
loud.
Yeah, it's definitely over the last couple of seasons, especially last year. Like, I really think it picked up last year. But, I mean, the experience, like, I think the fans realized last year that they play an integral part in building the team up. And I think that's something that other cities can really, and I'm not saying Vancouver's like any type of like learn from us, but like, the fans realize that they do play a part in elevating the team to play a specific way. And you can drive your team to possibly come back in that case and take an OT win or whatever, right? Like, it's exciting. And I think the fans realize that now.
So, some of you may be confused as to where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But the loudness of the fans in a mean-nothing game, essentially a mean-nothing game, right, other than 2 points, it makes me jealous as a Leafs fan. Now, you look at a team like Winnipeg, who has probably 3,000 to 4,000 capacity less in their arena.
Yeah, they're about
arguably the loudest arena in Canada, yeah. I would say, with the exception of maybe Montreal.
Well, see, and I I find that hard to believe, only for the fact that they're not selling out games in Winnipeg. This is the one struggle they've had over the past few years, and they're one of the best teams in the league, and they can't seem to fill it. They can't seem to fill up their barn for some reason.
But it is loud in there.
I believe it is. It's also smaller too, but yeah, I mean, Montreal is probably the loudest. I think you guys would agree. Yeah. Probably the loudest in the league, but I've heard Madison Square Garden's pretty loud too.
So that leads me to my point of the worst one in the league is, unfortunately, the home of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Scotiabank Arena. Now,
is that a statistic, or are you just saying that based on?
I'm saying it because I watch a lot of hockey.
Yes,
yeah, and it gets talked about a lot. It gets talked about by the players. It gets talked about the fans, and they're the most popular team. They're the most valuable team, the most expensive team to go and see. And are these contributing factors more because of the corporate-focused fan base and the suits they've been calling them for years?
Yeah.
Or is it something else? Because, I mean, that's the main reason that the building is quiet. At least that's what all the rumors are, right? You've got big company season ticket holders taking clients to games, sales meetings, taking them out for a good time. The upper bowl is the place that creates all the noise and energy in that building when there's any at all, and they're still paying $400+ for a ticket. It bugs the hell out of me that the fan base, which is the largest in the world for hockey, and yet the only place those fans seem to get recognized, or the only place that you actually hear sort of some passion from Leafs fans on a broadcast, is when they're playing in other buildings.
That's right.
Specifically Canadian teams' buildings, right? I would say Buffalo and Detroit you could probably rope in there as well, just because of close proximity. Yeah. It's still cheaper to go across the border, travel down to Buffalo, and catch a game there than it is to catch one in Toronto in the upper bowl, right? So I think that's probably the problem in Toronto, and it's so frustrating to me that you have to see your team play in another building for props. Now, I don't want to get your guys' opinions just yet. I want to do something here that seems to be a bit of a tradition starting. This is going to be a bit long-winded, so I'm going to warn you now. I'm going to do my best, but it's important to me. And something that we've been doing on our podcast throughout the episodes is kind of acknowledging, realizing, and appropriating the fact that life is hard, and life is hard for a lot of people, and it can be hard for a lot of people. We like to give respect, and we like to honor those that are fighting battles, whether it be physical related, mental health related, and those that are fighting along with their families to battle doctors and demons alike, right? I want to give a special shout out to a man who dedicates his life to his family first, his career second, really, and his passion third, yet you may not believe that if you know the person I'm talking about. This self-proclaimed beer-guzzling Leafs fan, hangover-friendly, chirper extraordinaire, shit disturber, go Leafs go, yes sir, another beer, and career-devoted man, a family man. We Leaf fans call him Curtis from Alberta, and you guys probably don't even know who he is. So this guy kind of came out on Twitter about 3 seasons ago, and he's from Southern Alberta. He's got a man cave to die for. This guy has got everything under the sun. Game-worn helmets, game-worn jerseys, a signed Hal Gill jersey that he wears all the time because the Leafs have a good record in it. He's kind of a superstitious guy. He's got pucks. He's got signed sticks. He's got signed gloves from Willie Nylander's game-winning goal 4 seasons ago. This guy's got wall-to-wall jerseys and lights and LEDs and photos and memorabilia. And I mean, thousands upon thousands of dollars. And he displays it and is proud of it. That's his passion is Toronto. And living in, a small town in Alberta, he sort of became famous because of drinking beer on a Saturday night. Mm. And, there's always going to be haters out there that give him shit for, as loud and boisterous as he is. And then you get a lot of fans that are just like, we wish we could be this guy, right? And I kind of want to say things like he started being generous and doing like his own contests because he got pretty Twitter famous and he got famous in a hurry. He's been shown on TV broadcasts for the work that he has in his man cave, or his Leafs collection and all that stuff. And he started, not auctioning off, but like giving away prizes to followers on Twitter. The 18th person to make a comment, or if you predict the closest time to when the first goal is scored, I'll send you a pair of mitt. He pays for the shipping, like everything, right? Like, this guy's so generous. So I'd say he's a true gentleman, a passionate fan, and a seasoned pro. Unfortunately, their families had some struggles to start 2025. Their son, Fisher, who just turned 13, actually, unfortunately, while he was in the hospital, he was born with some pretty severe autoimmune issues, and because of that, over his 13 years, has developed a fairly weak heart. The poor kid, who already struggles, developed pneumonia. Oh. So his oxygen levels, according to Curtis, this is straight from Curtis's Twitter. By the way, if you'd like to check out the story and check out Curtis and what he does, his handle is @LeafGuy403. So check him out. But Fisher, his oxygen levels were in like the 60s.
Wow.
Like, just terrible. Wow. Doctors and nurses continued to tend to him to try to help him get better. And Curtis came out and said, that is the scariest thing he'd ever gone through in his whole life, right? And as parents, I'm sure you guys can relate to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Heartbreakingly, Curtis and his wife asked Fisher what he was looking forward to most when he gets out of the hospital, and he replied, breathing.
Yeah.
So sad for a
Poor
teenager
guy.
to understand the circumstance and know to still somehow see the satire in such like an unruly situation. Yet it's so gut-wrenching to hear that at the same time, right? Yeah. Terrible that he's gone through that. However, after about 3 days of being basically in critical condition, he showed improvement. Within 1 day of that, he was breathing without oxygen.
Oh, good.
1 day after that, he was up walking around.
Wow.
And 2 days after that, he was walking out of the hospital.
Oh, good.
Resilience.
All within basically a week, right?
Good for him. That's amazing.
Yeah. Being an Alberta resident, Curtis always kind of makes an effort to go to both the Edmonton and Calgary games that are there each year. So, and his son...
Is he closer to one city than the other?
Yeah, he's closer to Calgary.
I see.
Yeah. His son is actually an Oilers fan. Fisher's an Oilers fan. So they always go to the game together.
Right on.
The sad thing is, of course, they had to miss it because Fisher was ill. But so they missed that game, and luckily for Curtis and Fisher, of course, their family being safe and comfortable now at home, Curtis was able to catch the Calgary game the other night. And my point of this post was to recognize the struggle for Fisher and really share his incredible story, as this is beginning to a new year. But I also wanted to share just how there are so many fans around the Maple Leafs, and we see it across the country in different ranks, different age groups, in different amounts. But how many of those fans are really like Curtis, right? Mm-hmm. Being as humble as he is, I'm hoping he gets to hear this, and I'm going to tag him in it later because we follow each other. Despite the thousands of dollars worth of possessions and clothing and memorabilia and memories and all the money he spends on trips and stuff like that, he would still simply say, quote, "I'm no different than any other fan. I just love the Leafs."
Yeah.
Again, we Leafs fans call him Curtis from Alberta, and honestly, I hope all you guys now also call him Curtis from Alberta.
Yeah, absolutely. That's incredible. What a story. I'm so happy to hear about his son doing better. Like, that's, as a father, like you said, like, there's nothing scarier than not having the ability to help your child.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine the pain and heart wrench that he went through, watching his son go through that. And I'm really, really happy for Curtis and his family that he's doing better.
And the fact that he's being a pillar for his family, and the fact that he's advocating for his son and his recovery, and that he's prioritizing his family over everything else, even his love for the Leafs, which, as you'd mentioned, is, bar none, probably not many fans that would probably match exactly, that devotion to the team and putting family first. You can never say enough about a family, man.
That's for sure.
And their love for their kids and
We don't. He and I don't share the same love for hockey teams, but we do share the same love for hockey, and also being dads. So it's definitely, it's a tough story, but I'm glad to hear that he's on. They're on the upswing in this case,
Absolutely.
And his son's doing a lot better. So that's an incredible story. Speaking of incredible stories, people might not know this about us, but we're big karaoke guys. We love to sing, we love to go out and sing and have a good time. And you and I used to host karaoke.
We did.
We've done many different karaoke shows for your, I think did we go karaoke for your bachelor party? Yes, we did. For your bachelor party, we went to karaoke, and actually for your brothers more recently, we also went and did karaoke for that as well. So karaoke is kind of a big part of our life. And one of the things we wanted to talk about in our entertainment subject today was our favorite karaoke songs. Do you have a specific song? It's kind of like your go-to karaoke song.
Well, for me, I'll share like a little bit of background, and I would say kind of when I first started singing, I was more of like into the crooning type songs. I sang like Just a Gigolo, My Way by Frank Sinatra. I tried a couple of Bublé songs, just something a little more modern. I like doing a lot of the old Elvis tunes. But what I kind of found over the years was that those are kind of a low-end register type song most of the time. And once I started playing a lot with a live band and I started singing more frequently, I was able to rapidly kind of expand my range and what genres I was able to sing, and then kind of attune my voice to, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that range expansion happened kind of organically with the process. But kind of developing some of that grit and whatnot over the years, that's sort of what I've been focusing on. And I would say my perspective's kind of changed on music a lot in that time period. And I would sort of, one of my go-tos now, I would say, is Bed of Roses.
Oh, yeah.
By Bon Jovi. And it's one of those songs, though, that I will say, so I'll say that one is one of my favorites. I'll let you guys kind of chime in, and then maybe I'll give you my all-time favorite.
I can tell you what my favorite that you sing is.
Maybe don't say it yet.
I was going to say it, but I have a feeling you know what it is.
But that Bed of Roses is one of those songs, for me anyway, that night to night, you might not be able to sing it one night over the next.
That's right.
You kind of have to know.
It depends on how much you've had to drink, too.
That's why, exactly. That's right.
What about you, Paul? What's your go-to karaoke song you like to?
Funny enough, I didn't actually really get into singing karaoke probably till I was out on the island. My very first song of karaoke was back in Calgary just before I left to move out here back in 2008, and my friends at the time forced me to go up onto the karaoke stage and sing I Believe in a Thing Called Love by the Darkness.
Oh my god.
I remember you've done that a few times.
I'd like to hear you do that one, actually.
Yeah, it was embarrassing, but it was fun at the same time, and it got the ball rolling there. In terms of ones that I've kind of started to regularly sing, and started off with the whole karaoke process. If You Could Only See by Tonic is one that I've always kind of leaned on.
That's one that I've done too in the past, where I did it and I was like, oh yeah, that one's not too bad. Like in terms of difficulty.
Yeah, and it does have a lot of range in it, and certainly if you can, I don't try to necessarily match my voice, but I try to at least stay on the same tune and tone as the singer. So it's one of those ones I know that I'm able to do it and do it well. Just like that one other song, Do It and Do It Well.
Doing it and doing it and doing it well. Yeah.
One that I know that you and Brandon and Tiffany have come to love is I sing a song called Babylon by David Gray. And I
don't know if I know that one.
It's kind of a somber song, but it's a fun one when you're listening to it, especially the way that it ends, because it does have kind of a higher level.
Is that the one where it's like da, 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 da,
yes.
Yeah, okay, I know that one. I don't remember the words. But...
Come and get it.
Yes, yeah. I know that one.
So that one's I've been very much a go-to that I've had for the last while, just because it is one of those ones that I know people enjoy hearing it.
Both of those songs I had never heard until you did them at karaoke.
Nice.
And what's so funny is I remember saying to you after the first time I heard you do Babylon, I'm like, that song's got to be from the 80s, right? Like that just sounds like an 80s tune. You're like, no, it was like 02. Like, holy cow. An old soul type song.
Looking at when I was first coming to karaoke, Sex on Fire by Kings of Leon is one I really, really got into just because I loved the Kings of Leon at the time.
Yeah.
And I'll maybe go over a few more. I'll give you a chance to kind of talk about a few of yours jokes, just the ones I want to go over more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been singing karaoke for a long time, and I think I was with you the first time I ever sang karaoke, though, like out in public. And probably one of the first songs, if not the song that I stuck to for so long, was Kryptonite by Three Doors Down.
Nice.
It just is. I was really into Three Doors Down, and I was really into that song for quite some time. But it was like my first sort of go-to song, and it was like one of the ones that I always did. And then I eventually like grew into doing more crooner style songs, and I've gotten a lot more into doing like Buble songs lately. I would say within the past 5-6 years or something like that. But ultimately, those are kind of like. That Three Doors Down, Kryptonite is probably number one. Number two, I would say, is something like I do "Cry Me a River" by Michael Bublé, which is a really hard song to do. But as I've gotten more and more confident over the years, that's something I enjoy doing a lot of, for sure. But there's more. There's a lot more that I have in the old repertoire. But
would you say you have quite a few songs from when you first started singing that you still sing now?
Yeah, like Kryptonite's number one. Maybe in terms of say kind of romantic songs, like "I'm Yours" by Jason Mraz is probably one that I do a lot of. "Amazed" by Lone Star is another one that I do, and then also "I'll Be" by Edwin McCain is probably the one I've done the longest, like over the years. I remember hearing that song for the first time when I was, and you're going to think I was 5, but I was probably like 12 and maybe 13 when I heard that song for the first time, and I fell in love with it. I just thought it was so awesome.
There's no way, because I'm pretty sure that song came out when I was 12.
No, it's a lot older than that.
No.
You got to look it up. Because like for sure, I've been singing that song since I was a kid. Singing is something, I've never been able to play an instrument. So for me, singing has always been the kind of thing that I do musically. And so I swear, like I've been singing that song. And actually I do have a song that I've been singing even longer. I remember singing it when I was 5, and that's "Under the Boardwalk" by the Drifters.
So that song came out in 97. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
How old were you?
I was 10.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll give you, close to 12.
Yeah. That was close. Yeah. That was probably Kryptonite and "Albie" were the ones that I would say were OG Joe.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. I was curious if you were going to say the same thoughts that I had.
Yeah, for sure. I have a few that are kind of over the years that I often go back to, and now like there are certain ones that I sing all the time because people ask me to sing them a lot, and that's people will ask me to sing "My Sacrifice" by Creed a lot.
Good job.
I enjoy that one. It's fun. And
we've done that together a couple times.
Yes, we have. Yeah, and and then also "I'll Be" is probably another one where I'll sing a lot because there's a specific moment, and I enjoy it because I have to hold a note for a long period of time. For me, it shows range, and that's what I enjoy about it.
And pitch.
But people really like it. People get they get a kick out of it, so that's why I enjoy doing it so much.
Probably my favorite by you is still probably "New Orleans is Sinking."
Yeah, New Orleans. Yeah, "A Little Tragically Hip" is always fun too, for sure. Yeah, that for me, "Blow at High Dough" is probably my favorite hip song that I sing.
Nice.
And then like "New Orleans is Sinking." New Orleans is a shorter song, so I don't get as much out of it, I feel like, but
I have one song that comes to mind other than my all-time karaoke song. But I got one song that I would say I kind of sang start to finish from when I first started singing karaoke to now that I still bring out. And it's interesting because I sing it like the original artist, but I prefer the musical version of sort of the remake.
I wonder if it's the song I'm thinking of.
It's "Drift Away"
by
Uncle Kracker.
It's not the one I was thinking of. But I enjoy that.
So that's the one that is kind of my go-to if I just want to, maybe I want to impress everybody, or maybe it's heightening the crowd experience, or whatever the case may be. But that's probably the one that I've done the longest. And my number one karaoke song, I would say I've probably been doing just about as long, but I've changed so much the way I sing it over the years.
Can I guess?
You can guess.
You Can Leave Your Hat On?
You Can Leave Your Hat On.
That's the one I was thinking of. That's the one I was thinking of.
The attitude, the grit, the range, this theatrical side.
I was going to say, when you do that song, it's like a show. You're putting a show, and the theatrics of it, and people love it. People absolutely. I feel like every time I've ever seen you do that song, everyone gets into it.
I think I stopped doing it so much because I just did it so often when I was younger. It's one of those instances where when I was, let's say specifically between, say, 19 and 24.
Yeah.
When I sang that song, I always sang it at the end of the night because I needed all the booze before to loosen me up enough to have that much fun with it, right? Now I just have fun with it because I can do it with my eyes closed.
Yeah.
But that's definitely one of those songs where singing it a bit like Joe Cocker is to your advantage.
Well, you throw that raspiness in there too. Like,
yeah.
Just the way you kind of the energy that you bring when you add that raspiness too. Like I think that's the whole part of it, right? Like it's a show, like I said, and I think that people really get a kick out of that. And that's the kind of fun you can have with karaoke that people don't realize is that it doesn't have to. You don't have to sound like the band or whatever. You can put your own spin on it, but you have to kind of add to it in a way too, like add some theatrics or at least do something with your voice that gets people kind of into it, right? Where it hooks people.
Very true. I'd give a lot of credence to you and Tiffany and to you and Faye, our group of friends, for obviously getting me into karaoke. Some of the first songs I used to sing to when we were hanging as groups was "Broken" by Seether with Angel Lee. I used to sing that with Tiffany from time to time. I also used to sing it with Mike's old girlfriend Asia, obviously not necessarily the picture with us anymore. And songs like "Summer Nights" were songs that really kind of got me going on being comfortable with other people and kind of almost like a stage presence almost when you're doing it. So I've always enjoyed doing that now because of the influence that you guys have had there. I'd done Whole New World from the Aladdin soundtrack. I love doing the Disney movies, like "You're Welcome" by Dwayne Johnson from Moana, still one of my absolute favorite songs to sing.
If you can find somebody to sing "Shallow" with, that one, because the guy part in "Shallow" is a lot easier than the girl part.
Easier, and I've done it before.
And it's like that's one of the ones where you can really develop sort of confidence because it's so easy to do on the guy part. The girl part is not so much, but if you can get a talented singer to sing with you, then you're laughing. But that's always a good one for people who are just kind of getting new to the whole thing.
When like I said, there's so many different ways to go with karaoke and musically, right? Like I just talked about Moana, kind of going away from maybe like a genre and going into say something like Disney or music, like a musical like Phantom of the Opera. I love doing Music of the Night by from Andrew Lloyd Webber of Phantom of the Opera. Jack's Lament from Nightmare Before Christmas is still one of my absolute favorite songs to sing. I sing it every Christmas and every Halloween, and have been given kudos for it. I appreciate people saying that I've got a good singing voice. It definitely builds up that confidence.
Yeah, with people there's so many people out there who, I remember this as a karaoke host where I'd get people who would literally just come to see people sing. They won't sing themselves because they're nervous about it, but they literally will go up and they'll try it for the first time and they'll be like, I just felt like doing it because you created an environment where it felt like I didn't have to be good. I could just come out and have some fun and everybody enjoys it. And that should be the point of karaoke, really, more than anything. It's not about a singing contest. You're going out there to make sure that you have a good time and make sure that other people have a good time. So if there's anybody listening to this show right now who are aspiring karaoke hosts or karaoke singers, just know karaoke is not about who's better than who. It's about go out there and have the best time you can possibly have. And if you don't feel confident getting up there and singing by yourself, bring your friends with you and have some fun with it.
So I have two things that I would like us to do if we can. What I'll do is I'll take the lead on it because I'm proposing it and you guys probably haven't had time to think about it. But the first thing I want to do is I think it would be cool if we told each other what our favorite songs that they do is, just on like a personal level. Not necessarily their best song or their their crappiest song, but the song that you like that they do the most. You guys, do you think we could do that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the one thing I want to do. I'll take the lead first. But the other thing I want to do is I want to ask you guys what your thoughts are on karaoke don'ts.
Oh.
Like from a host perspective,
Yeah.
from someone like you, Paul, who kind of attends a lot of shows, which ones have you seen, or not seen, I mean, I guess you've seen them, but heard specifically so many times that you're just, no thanks. No go, bro. and on top of that, like the ones that maybe you've heard done so poorly so often. Yeah. So I'll start by saying your guys' favorite songs that I do. For you, Joe, and it's actually one of the ones that you said, my favorite that you do is My Sacrifice. Yeah. I really do enjoy that one. I think your voice is kind of perfect for it. And Paul, you didn't even mention it in your list, but it's One Republic, Counting Stars. Oh. That was another song that I had never heard until you sang it at karaoke. And it's just, not only do you do it well, but it's like an engaging song. Everybody's sitting there, no, but I'm not that. Oh, you're just kind of like singing along, trying to find out where the beat is, and one of those ones you just want to pump your fist and tap your feet to, and that was my favorite.
I agree with him on that one for you, Paul, because ultimately it is that one that you don't hear other people do that song, and that's the benefit of it, because you go to a karaoke show and you tend to hear the same songs over and over again. Somebody's like, I want to sing, Bohemian Rhapsody. It's like, but
that's in the next section.
I was going to say that's in the next section, but that's probably my favorite of the ones you do. That and maybe like Ho Hey or something like that. By the Lumineers.
Lumineers is great.
That's a fun one. Brandon, obviously, Joe Cocker, you can leave your hat on. My favorite of yours because of the theatrics more than anything. There is, and then A Bed of Roses is another one because you do it so well. Like you perform it well, and I think you're proud of it. And I think that's the thing that you can kind of see when you sing that song. So for me, those are the kind of major two that I stick to.
Bed of Roses, I find, is the most fun to do when you find yourself in a spot where you're both physically and mentally into it. And I mean, I know we're just talking about singing, but to be a passionate singer, there are a lot of things that go along with it, right? And Bed of Roses is one of the songs, and probably the one that I do the most, where I can really include dynamics.
Yes.
The song starts off soft, and you can add your accent wherever you want. You can add a bit of grit wherever you want, and then when you get to the chorus, now it's time to show the world what you got, right?
That's right.
And then in an instant, you could take that away and bring it right back down. And I try to
you demonstrate control. I think ultimately when it comes to your vocals, you demonstrate control. Now that being said, again, I'm thinking about people who might be listening to this who are interested in karaoke, but maybe not experienced singers. It's not a contest. Like you're not going out there to try and be a better singer than other people. It's just, if you happen to get somebody who is a talented singer who sings before you, as a host, my least favorite thing I could hear people say is, "You want me to follow that guy?" And it's just like, it's not a contest, man.
Just want you to follow.
Yeah, that guy. Go out there and have a good time, and everyone will feel that, and they'll have a good time too.
Improve on your own singing.
That's right.
That's the only competition you've got.
And you can't improve if you don't practice, right? So you need to understand that you're going to sound differently singing without a microphone than with a microphone, right? So that's the other part of it too, like having that control with a microphone.
And you also won't improve if you're not enjoying it.
That's right. Now, as a host, my least favorite things when it comes down to it, I think probably Bohemian Rhapsody would be my least favorite song. And I have nothing against the song, but it's just too many times. It's the most requested song that people want to sing, and it's usually about 7 people singing it at the same time, and nobody ever does it well. Like nobody has ever gone and done that song, and you've sat back and went, wow, that was really impressive. Like it's usually somebody who's incredibly drunk and they're screaming in the microphone and they don't actually know what the hell they're doing. It's my least favorite song, but actually my least favorite habit that people have when it comes to singing karaoke is swallowing the microphone. They take that microphone and they literally put it in their mouths when they're singing.
And they cup the top.
And they cup the top of it, and it's just, you get nothing but feedback, you get nothing but like distortion, and it just sounds awful. My one tip for people is if you're going to learn how to sing with a microphone, learn how to hold the microphone, learn how to pull it away from your mouth at the right time. Get that practice, because that's where you will sound the best.
If I'm going over obviously the ones I like from you guys, I already mentioned yours with New Orleans is Singing. I think you hit it right to the beat with that song every time. I love when you do Jason Mraz and stuff too as well,
Yeah.
Joe. But for whatever reason, that hip song, I think you nail it every single time.
I have such a good time singing that song.
Yeah.
I mean, all Tragically Hip songs, I always have such a good... And I think it's because I have so much respect for Gord Downie. Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
it's so funny. I remember being a teenager and just thinking, like, I hated the Tragically Hip. And then I got older and I was just like, all of a sudden... I love these guys. Like, what am I talking about? He was such a brilliant lyricist, and I think he had such Canadian pride, which I think I really respect. So.
I loved his duet, "Sleep in Sickness" with City in Color or Dallas Green. Yeah, such a good song.
Absolutely.
If I'm looking at you, Brandon, kind of two, only because the other one's a duet with your brother. I really like Pride and Joy, obviously. I think you do a fantastic job with that every single time. Again, one of those things, every time I've heard you sing it, I love hearing it every single time, and I want you to sing it every time we're hanging out and doing karaoke.
That's the bluesy side.
Totally.
So the other one that I really like that you and your brother do is No Sugar Tonight. You guys always get the crowd into it, and again, another one of the songs I want to hear when I'm at karaoke because it's a fun time, and it's not just our table; it's the whole crowd
bar.
of people are involved with it, and they're really enjoying it. So
I mean, that's one of the ones where you guys kind of caught on when you did it the first time together, and you just practice and practice and practice, and you harmonize so well together. And I think that's the part that throws everybody off.
Very much.
But absolutely, it's that's the fun thing with karaoke, man. You can put on a show, and you don't have to be the best singers in the world. You don't have to be, as long as you work at it like you guys have done, and you enjoy what you're doing, and you actually bring out that energy. That's really all that matters.
And then if we're looking at ones that I can't stand hearing, unfortunately, it's Lee Hazelwood did a great job with the song, but I just cannot stand listening to it karaoke. Most of the time people are kind of off either with the song or it's just, I think it's overdone, and that's These Boots Are Made for Walking. I just cannot stand hearing it at karaoke because I haven't heard anybody that can sing it the way that she sung it. And not that everyone has to be on tune with that, but it's one of the songs that's such a good song.
Yeah. It's common.
Oh wait, no, sorry, it wasn't Lee Hazelwood, it was Nancy Sinatra. My apologies for that, guys. But yeah, These Boots Are Made for Walking. Just for me, is not one that I enjoy hearing at karaoke. It kind of makes me cringe every time I hear it.
I hear that.
So I've got one that is the worst, and in my opinion, the absolute karaoke don't. But I've got two kind of honorable mentions that I just want to mention real quick. The first one is Killing Me Softly.
Oh.
And it's the Fugees version.
Yeah.
Roberta Flack originally did it.
It's faster paced.
No, well, sort of. It's done differently altogether. It's more of just like a keyboard type song. And then the Fugees is more of like almost like a hip hop type.
Yeah, very hip hoppy.
It's never done well. Ladies, just stop doing it. The second one, unfortunately, also a ladies song, although this one I have heard done by males. Please stop, because the notes never get hit, and it's so painful, and that's I Love Rock and Roll. Oh, Lord in heaven.
Interesting. I've never heard a male sing that song.
I have a couple of times. It obviously didn't turn out well. But that doesn't matter. They were having a good time, but it's still a karaoke don't for me.
You know what? Sorry to interrupt, but you know what another karaoke don't for me is?
Don't steal my last one.
Oh, maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe. Hopefully.
Mine's a duet.
Okay, mine's not. My number one as a host specifically, my biggest karaoke don't is when somebody comes up to me and they say, "You got to put me up right now. I swear to God, these people are going to love me. I'm everywhere I go, everyone loves me. Blah 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 blah." And then they go up and they sing their song, and they're the worst singer I've ever heard in my life. And most of the time, it's because they're doing Eminem. They're going up there and they're rapping. They can never keep up with Eminem. Like, can never keep up. The lyrics are so fast and like. And they've had a few to drink, so they're kind of like already out of it.
Definitely the alcohol.
They go up there and they can't keep up, and it's like, I don't know what you were promising me, but it's not. I never. By the way, as a host, I never give them the opportunity to go up ahead of somebody. Like, rotation management is number one for me. So when it comes down to it, if you come up to me and you say you got to put me up now, I'm going to tell you got to wait your turn, because there's somebody that's been waiting longer than you to take their turn. So I'm not cutting somebody else off just so you could go up and spit Eminem. But yeah, that's probably my biggest don't.
I have a bit of a story, and you can choose to believe me or not on this one. I kept track of how many times this song was sung at consecutive shows that I was hosting. And somewhere in the same week, there was a time where I did host twice. So it's not like we're talking X amount of weeks, just X amount of shows.
Right.
And sorry, let me rephrase that. This also includes shows that I was just attending.
I see.
Because the number's pretty large. The song was heard and played and sung at 137 consecutive shows that I was in attendance for.
I have a guess.
This song is Picture.
Yeah, I was going to say Picture.
By Kid Rock and Sheryl Crow.
Yeah.
And if I'm being completely honest with you, I could maybe give you an estimate, but out of those 137 times, it was probably done pretty well, like maybe 15.
I was going to say 2, but that's...
I would say maybe 15, and a lot of the time it's because of like colleagues of ours doing it together or whatever, people that do know the song and have heard it a million times. But that is one song for me that just... If it's done well, it's a good song.
Yeah.
But my key and the thing that I think is important when you are doing duets, again, have fun, but do your part that you're supposed to be doing. And I think that just never gets done in Picture. They're like summer nights and stuff like that. It's pretty easy to determine.
Nobody ever asks me to duet that song with them. Everyone asks me to duet Picture with them, and I'm like, oh, really? I don't like Kid Rock's part in that song because my voice does not go near what his voice does.
Yeah.
And so I have a hard time with that. I was off to drag you away. I can't get that high.
Tight shorts.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Maybe I gotta be. Never mind. I'm not gonna get into that. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's a harder one for me, and I don't enjoy it when I do it. So it's always funny when people are like, "Oh, will you sing this with me?" And as a host, I'm more often than not, I'm just trying to keep the show going. So I'm like, sure, whatever, and then I'll sing it. But I hate singing that song with people. It's my least favorite song.
In terms of, I guess, songs that kind of hit on different emotional levels, what are two that you guys sing that maybe are on the happier level, and then ones that are maybe on more the sad level or like the romantic level? Like myself, I do like to sing Strange Days by Matthew Good for the kind of going on the lower level and that kind of care level. And then if I'm looking for more of a happy song, I'll usually sing When the Night Feels My Song by Bedouin Soundclash. How about you guys?
Well, I can definitely say for happy, it's always Tragically Hip for me. Like Blow It High Dough or New Orleans is Sinking. Usually I would, as a host, I would, always open the show with a song so that you get everybody going, and also you're doing the sound checks and stuff like that. But for me, New Orleans is Sinking, Blow It High Dough, those are the two that I feel like get the energy going for the show, and I usually had a good show after doing those songs to start. So those are probably my happy ones. I rarely sing sad songs. Like I don't
maybe even like slower songs.
Yeah, like probably Amazed, something like that. If I'm doing, say, like a kind of if I want to get a romantic vibe, that's something I'll do. But yeah, in terms of sad songs, I don't do a lot of sad songs.
I do a lot more country now than I ever used to, and
so that's nothing but sad songs.
Yeah.
Trucks breaking down.
Actually, my happy song is a country song, the one that I really enjoy and the one that I really like to do. And that's Be My Baby Tonight by John Michael Montgomery.
Yeah, that's
a lot of fun. It's really short though, and it's not really challenging, but it's a lot of fun to do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of I usually do that one first if I'm singing at a karaoke show, and just kind of get the upbeat of the song. It's a pretty fast tempo song. That's kind of my happy one. I have two that I'd like to suggest for like sad-ish or slower songs. They're actually both by the same singer, but one song was when he was in the band and one was when he was solo. The singer I'm talking about is Don Henley. And the song that was with the band that he did was when he was with the Eagles, and it's Desperado. That was one of kind of my original songs that I started doing a long, long time ago. And
anytime I think of Desperado, I think of Seinfeld.
kind of a sad, sappy song, but again, a really wide range. And another song that I do that kind of gets my emotions going, and Don Henley song also, and I really only started doing it the last couple of years, and that's a song called The End of the Innocents.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Which I really enjoy doing.
That's fun.
That's a good song.
Well, gentlemen, we've got a long one today. We're actually close to 2 hours, believe it or not. We've been talking for quite some time. But you know what? A lot of great topics. And, of course, we had a lot to talk about with all the stuff that went down over the past a little while. But before we say goodnight, just a reminder to the people listening that you guys can reach us on our social medias. We're available on TikTok, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at the Puckn Pod. And of course, you can find us pretty much wherever you can find your podcasts as well. So reach out, leave us a comment. Let us know if you want us to discuss anything. We've got lots of stuff we talk about on our end. But if you guys have suggestions, of course, we'd love to hear from you. And even just to say hi, let us know. Gentlemen, do you guys have anything you want to add before we say goodnight?
No, I don't think so.
You're shaking your head. You're supposed to speak into the microphone.
Farewell, and enjoy your day.
Godspeed.
Once again for the Puckn Pod. My name is Joe
Brando.
And I'm Paul.
We'll see you guys on the next one.